Disturbing horror video. The hallway was silent, except for the soft hum of the flickering light. The camera, old and grainy, shook slightly like someone was holding it with trembling hands. Then she appeared, a woman in a white nightgown, pale and wide-eyed, as if she had been crying. She stared straight at the camera, not moving, not blinking, like she knew she was being watched. Suddenly, her body jerked violently backward, as if something had grabbed her from behind. Her scream was loud and sharp, and then silence. The camera kept rolling. For nearly a full minute, nothing happened. Then came the sound of dragging, a door slamming somewhere deep in the house, and faint, whispering voices so soft you could barely hear them. The screen went black. Nobody in town could explain what was on that tape. The woman was never identified, and the house was empty when police arrived. But what made this so terrifying was what happened next, and that's where our story begins. In the fall of 1988, a group of teenagers, Jason, Mike, Sarah, and Emily, were exploring the outskirts of the small Ohio town where they lived. It was the kind of town where everyone knew everyone else, and nothing much ever happened. That's why the old Miller house had always been the center of every dare, every ghost story, every whispered secret. The house had been abandoned for nearly 20 years, its windows broken, its front door barely hanging on by rusted hinges. People said anyone who stayed inside after dark would hear voices, and some swore they saw shadows moving through the windows even though the house was empty. Jason was the one who brought it up that day. "Come on," he said with a grin. "We've got a camera. Let's go inside tonight and film it. If we find anything, we'll have proof." Mike wasn't so sure. "Man, my dad says that house is cursed. Said somebody went missing there back in the 70s. Sarah rolled her eyes. "That's just an old story. Nobody actually went missing. People just like to make stuff up about this place." But Emily, who had been quiet the whole time, finally spoke. "What if we really do see something? What if those stories are true?" Jason smirked. "Then we'll have the scariest video anyone's ever seen." That night, they biked out to the edge of town with an old VHS camcorder Jason borrowed from his uncle. The air was cold, and the woods around the house were silent, except for the sound of crickets. When they reached the house, it looked even scarier than they had expected. The paint was peeling, the windows covered with grime. The porch creaked under their feet as they stepped up to the front door. Inside, the air smelled like dust and mildew. The floorboards groaned with every step. They pointed the camera down the hallway, and the light from the flashlight bounced across the peeling wallpaper. "This is where we're going to find something," Jason whispered. For the first few minutes, nothing happened. They walked through the living room, the kitchen, even upstairs, filming everything. They laughed nervously when they found a broken mirror and a pile of old clothes in one of the bedrooms. But then, when they came back to the hallway, the air felt colder. Emily shivered. "Do you feel that?" she whispered. Jason aimed the camera straight down the hall. The light bulb above them flickered, even though nobody had seen it turn on when they first entered. Suddenly they heard it. Faint footsteps somewhere behind them. Mike spun around. No answer. They stood frozen for a moment. Then came a soft knocking sound. 3 knocks, slow and steady, from the very end of the hallway. Sarah grabbed Jason's arm. "Tell me you heard that." "I heard it," Jason said, his voice shaking now. Before anyone could move, the sound of something heavy being dragged echoed through the hall. The camera caught the sound perfectly, and for a second it seemed like something was moving just beyond the reach of the flashlight beam. Then the light bulb above them burst, showering them with tiny shards of glass. Emily screamed. The camera tilted wildly, and in that split second of chaos, it captured something standing at the end of the hallway. A dark shape, tall and still. And then everything went black. The screen stayed black for a few seconds, but the camcorder was still running. All you could hear was the sound of everyone breathing hard in the darkness. Then came a faint creak, the sound of a door slowly opening somewhere deeper inside the house. Jason fumbled with a flashlight, finally clicking it back on. The beam shook as he aimed it down the hallway. Nothing was there. The shape they had seen just seconds ago was gone. We need to get out of here," Emily whispered, clutching Sarah's arm so tightly her nails dug into her skin. But Jason shook his head. No. If we leave now, we'll never know what we saw. We have to catch it on tape. Mike swallowed hard. Are you crazy? Something's in here with us. Jason turned the camera back toward the hall and started walking forward. The others followed, even though every step felt heavier, like the floor itself was trying to keep them there. The flashlight beam moved across the peeling wallpaper and stopped on a door at the very end of the hallway, one none of them had noticed before. Was that always there? Sarah asked. I don't think so, Jason said. Emily hesitated. I don't think we should go down there. But Jason was already stepping onto the first stair. Mike grabbed his sleeve. We should at least leave a marker or something. If something happens. Nothing's going to happen, Jason said, though his voice didn't sound convinced. They descended one step at a time, the wood groaning under their weight. At the bottom was a concrete floor, cold and wet. The beam of light moved across the room, revealing old furniture, a broken chair, and what looked like scratches in the wall, long, deep gouges, like something had clawed at the concrete. What did that? Sarah asked softly. Then they heard it again, a faint whisper, this time coming from behind them. They spun around, but the stairs were empty. Jason slowly raised the camera toward the far corner of the basement. There was something there. At first, it looked like a shadow, but as the flashlight beam caught it, the shape became clearer. A figure standing perfectly still, its head slightly tilted. Who's there? Jason asked, his voice barely a whisper. No answer. The figure didn't move. Mike backed up, his breath coming in short gasps. We have to go. Now. Before anyone could move, the figure took a single step forward, and every light in the basement went out at once. The camera dropped, landing on the floor at an angle. It kept recording as their screams filled the dark. Then, clear as day, the tape caught something moving fast across the floor, not walking but crawling, its limbs bending in ways no humans should. It rushed straight toward the camera. And the recording cut to static. The static lasted only a few seconds before the picture came back, blurry and tilted. The camcorder was still recording from the floor. Jason grabbed it with shaking hands, lifting it just in time to see the far corner of the basement, now completely empty. The figure was gone. Nobody spoke for several seconds. You could hear only their breathing and the slow drip of water somewhere nearby. Finally, Sarah whispered, "What was that thing?" "I don't know," Jason said. "But we have it on tape. We have to keep filming." Mike looked at him like he was crazy. "Are you out of your mind? Something just tried to attack us." Jason swallowed, his face pale but determined. "If we leave now, no one will believe us. We need to prove what's really happening in this house." Emily wiped tears from her face and nodded. "Let's just stick together, okay?" They stayed in the basement a few more minutes, scanning every corner with a flashlight. Nothing moved. The air still felt heavy, like it was pressing on their chests, but the whispers had stopped. Slowly, they climbed back up the stairs and into the hallway. For a moment, everything seemed almost normal. The house was quiet. Too quiet. "Maybe it's gone," Sarah said, her voice shaky but hopeful. Then, from somewhere upstairs, they heard a sound. Slow, deliberate thump. Then another. And another. "It's upstairs," Mike said, backing toward the front door. But Jason was already raising the camera, pointing it toward the staircase. "We have to see what it is." The screen stayed black, but this time it was not silence that followed. There was breathing, deep, slow breathing, coming from just a few feet away from the microphone. Then a low scraping sound, like nails dragging across the floor. Jason scrambled to pick up the camera. The picture came back into focus just in time to catch the thing in the room, now closer, almost within arm's reach. Its face was pale, featureless except for two black hollow eye sockets, like empty holes staring right into them. "Run!" Mike shouted. The group bolted from the room, their footsteps pounding on the floorboards as they ran down the hallway. Behind them came the sound of the creature's footsteps, faster now, almost galloping. They stumbled down the stairs and into the living room, gasping for air. Jason spun around, shining the flashlight toward the stairs, but nothing was there. The house was quiet again. "This isn't right," Emily said, shaking. "It was right behind us." They stood there for a moment, trying to catch their breath. The camera's red light blinked steadily, recording everything. Then something strange happened. The front door, which they had left slightly open, slowly creaked shut all by itself. Mike grabbed the handle and tried to pull it open, but it wouldn't budge. "It's locked," he said, panic creeping into his voice. "It's like it's sealed shut." Sarah began to cry quietly. "We're trapped." Jason tried to think. Okay. There has to be another way out. Maybe through the kitchen window. They moved toward the kitchen, but halfway there, the air turned cold again. Their breath came out in clouds, and the faint sound of whispering filled the house once more, this time louder, as if dozens of voices were all around them. The camera caught the kitchen table sliding across the floor by itself. Chairs toppled over, they reached it, but just as Mike tried to climb through, the window slammed shut with such force it cracked down the middle. That's when the basement door creaked open on its own. They all turned to look. The darkness beyond the basement stairs seemed deeper than before, almost like it was swallowing the light from the flashlight. Then they heard it, a voice, soft but clear, coming from below. "Don't leave." It wasn't just one voice. It was many, all speaking at once, overlapping like a terrible chorus. Emily froze in place, the hand tightened on the doorway, its fingers impossibly long, nails scraping against the wood. Then the rest of it came into view, slow, deliberate, step by step. Its head was bent so low it nearly touched its chest, and its joints popped as it moved, like bones snapping back into place. Jason's flashlight beam shook as it landed on the creature.